Ethos of Silence.
A veteran podcast aims to amplify the voices of veterans, creating a safe space for authentic conversations about their experiences, challenges, and triumphs. We seek to break the stigma surrounding mental health and foster community support, resilience, and understanding. Through storytelling, expert insights, and candid discussions, we strive to inspire healing, promote awareness, and empower veterans on their journeys.
Welcome back, Ethos of Silence. Oh man, boy, it's been a long fucking week. Been a long week, dog. I had one day off, and then been up since I don't know midnight. So it's been a long day.
Yeah, midnight to tonight. Yeah, you're running on energy. Found energy. Not
found energy, man. It's borrowed energy.
Borrowed.
I'm borrowing it from another day.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you before, the body.
Yeah.
The shit about the body.
The body remembers, but the mind makes you forget. It forgets.
Yeah, the body reminds you.
Your body's like you're way older than what your mind's thinking it is.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you very much. We were talking about the Warriors ethos before. We're going to get into that, but me and TJ here, we're wore out.
Oh yeah.
My February had just slowed. It just hit this really cusp of mud after a long, stressed out refinance on a home.
That's all right.
That was
Life throws you curveballs. Sometimes you got to adjust.
Getting hollered at, by the way. Like, stop saying things like it's slowing down. I don't want my work week to slow down.
All right, let's jump into the Warrior Ethos, man.
Yeah, for you guys that are following, we're in the Warrior Ethos. And just to recap, last time we were talking about Alexander the Great and his episodes and his travels around the world and the ethos, how it connects to this. So I want to say that if you guys
mostly
have
what he
you
did
want us to read, let us know in the comments. We would love to pick up on something that you've read yourself, and we'd love to get your take on what you find to be a warrior's ethos, or even something modern nowadays. Anything, any books, we'd love to know about it. Tell me about it. All right.
Remember, I'm a Marine, so it's got to be something that's written in crayon.
No doubt. Did we do citations for Valor? I don't think we did citations for Valor.
Nah, I think we're there.
Yeah, that's exactly where I put the mark. So, citations for Valor. Decorations for Valor, from ancient days to modern, have seldom been awarded for raw bloodthirstiness or brute act of producing carnage. The feat that inspires witnesses to honor it is almost invariably one of selflessness. The hero, through virtually no recipient chooses to call himself by that name, often acts as much to preserve his comrades as he does to deliver destruction onto his foe.
Yeah.
In citations, we read these phrases again and again. Disregarding his own safety, with no thought for his own life. Though wounded numerous times and in desperate need of care for himself. Selflessness. The group comes before the individual. That's for citations. So I had it comes back to a point long ago, not so long ago, coming back from one of our missions. And the mission, though I always thought it was like a Jeopardy crapshoot of who got medals or what, they were like, we're putting you in for the Silver Star. And I'm like, the fuck you? I mean, the heck you are.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want that. And I don't want people to know that. And I don't want to rub that around nowhere. Don't tell anyone. In fact, if you do, I'm going to be very pissed off to even you to share what happened. That wasn't a moment to go put on a stage about what happened to the guys out there that day. No, this was a selfless act of guys that gave their lives. And that part of that mission reminded me of it. You're going to give me a star for that? You can take your star and keep it.
Well, isn't that what every award ends up being, though?
It's yeah. For better luck, it is. It's just a citing of some instance that nobody knew anything about. Well, unless it's somebody that's in the field, Colonel Reese is a great example.
Colonel Reese is a great example.
He was an in-field officer that experienced the woes and the death-defying defeats with no thought for his own life.
Yeah.
And there wasn't many colonels out there that I was seeing that was like that. I was seeing some really
but he also spoke of from the upper thing, like us on a ground level, speaking of it, of deciding what squad's going to go in and all this other different stuff, but him on an even higher level trying to decide, are we even going to take this mission on? Like we're deciding the front lines of like, hey, this guy's doing this doing this. But he was deciding, are we even going to take this mission on a platform that is just like beyond conception for us, because we're just fucking execute.
Yeah, from his point of being like he should have been in an office, or he could have been in an office.
Yeah,
but he's got that experience, which, by the way, I have none of that, and I'm not that big experienced frontline soldier. But it's really cool that Robert, does. Yeah, we've had our experiences.
Well, that's one of the coolest parts about being in a lot of these veteran service organizations is that you get to see that whole spectrum, right? Because we provided a lot of support operations. You provided a lot more frontline support operations than I did. Mine was way the fuck back of the line, air wing, making sure the aircrafts were ready to rock and roll. But everybody was in the combat zone and doing their fucking part. When everybody does their part, the machine runs so methodically.
Oh, and one couldn't work without the other, for sure. And if it was a breakdown on one side, it was felt on the field.
Well,
a prime example, if you want to talk about aviation, and especially what you were doing, we had air support. 12th Aviation was pulling up from the south. And when we lost chopper support, we got way ahead of where the Marines were and got into some shit and had to stop and wait because our unit was not completely prepared. Half of it was, but we wasn't. So the Apaches were down. They were browned out. So they were browning out in the sand and no one to fix that situation. So that's death.
Also, you lose your business term, your competitive advantage, your war term, your fucking your level of superiority over the enemy, because now you're on, we're not designed for a trench warfare type war. We're designed for an overlapping fields of fire type of war in the advance of what they're doing. So you're set up for, the overlapping fields of fire and the overlapping everything to make sure that everybody methodically makes it through.
Definitely.
And whenever somebody's not executing on a point at a given time, you delay everybody else behind you.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was great to see. Hearing is believing, and hearing Robert's experiences on the battlefield was a unique situation.
That's everybody's experiences, though. That's all of them.
He was a follow me kind of person, or I'll lead the way kind of person, and you didn't see it a lot.
So possibly this citations thing would be a good thing to reread whenever we have a guest who has something that would spark their story.
The story.
We can literally start with this chapter.
Yeah, that would bring out a good piece of their own. Let's write that down. Yeah, let's put that into one of the parts of the chapter, the citation part.
Citations, and we can literally almost just play that clip for them, or have that clip already read.
We need to contact the author later and be like, hey, do you know we're using your point of book for references? I just thought you might want to know that for the whole podcast. You want to come on? Who is this guy anyway? Steve Pressfield. What's his experience?
He's a Marine Corps officer.
He was a Marine Corps officer. Yeah. Or is, excuse me.
He's a Marine.
He's a
Marine Corps officer.
He is.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah, you hear that all the time. And
you earn the title, you don't lose the title.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be throughout it,
Every branch should have that ethos that ties back to the silence part of the thing. With that ethos, the only way to lose the title is give away the title. So why would I commit suicide and give away the fucking title that I earned?
That's right. The squids, they always want to be noted as squids too. The Air Force want to be the fly guys. I'm a proud fly guy. Yep. The citations for valor. Yeah, we'll mark that. We'll mark that as what we're going to do as for guests.
Yeah.
Spark what they know and what they may have come up with. Who knows where that'll take us in a story. So,
then World War II veterans, it might take us somewhere special.
That would be pleasing, pleasurable conversation to have with those guys. Both of those brothers flying. Ask them, I could definitely see this. That one might spark something.
Yeah.
Zeus, get on.
Can you imagine a citation that should have went out that didn't? Of all the citations that happened in World War II, can you imagine one that should have went out that didn't? That is a mind-boggling question that could probably get some really, really awesome insight from the pilot. Come on, Zeus.
Go. Shoot. There we go.
I think Zeus is saying move on to the next one. We 10 minutes in the citations.
Shepherd.
Let's move to the next one.
Yeah, right. Shoot. Yeah, yeah, who deserves it, you know? Is it the person that gave his absolute life, or is it the person that gave the citation? I mean, I get what they have to do. They have to give the medals too, in a way. So the next section, number 16, if you're following along, page 47, is during the 6-day war, the Yom Kippur War, and all of Israel's subsequent conflicts, casualties sustained by officers have exceeded proportionally by far those suffered by men of enlisted ranks. This is going somewhere. Why? Because the primary leadership principle that Israeli officers are taught is follow me.
Follow me.
During the Sinai campaign of 1956, the commander of an Israeli armored regiment violated orders and attacked down the length of the Mitla Pass, sacrificing numerous men and vehicles to capture a strong point that was later given up. Despite public outrage at this act of insubordination, the Israeli commander-in-chief, General Moshe Dayan, refused to discipline the man. I will never punish an officer for daring too much, but only too little. In the historic clashes of the Granicus River, Issus and Gaugamela, Alexander the Great's order of battle ran like this. I'm going to stop and talk for a second. That was pretty moving. I wouldn't punish an officer for doing too much. I'd punish him for not doing enough, too little.
Yeah.
Isn't that the ethos? Still today, you're not doing enough. You're not giving enough. Give more than what you're doing right now. There's the blood and the sweat and the tears that you need to be making.
Yeah, but it also comes down in another way. Other than that, with the fact of making a decision and moving with the decision, not waiting for a decision to come from somewhere else. I'm not going to discipline somebody on the fact that they made a decision that they see an outpost. And they're like, if I take this outpost, it will be a strategical thing. I have the capabilities. We have the support in place. We have all these other different things. Mm-hmm. I may sustain heavy casualties, but I, as the officer over all of these men, have calculated that risk to reward. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it is worth the risk for us to take this and go about it.
That's courage under fire.
Exactly. Making a decision and moving forward.
1956.
I mean, how many times in war movies do you see them going up to the officer and he's all curled up in the ball and like, sir, which way you want us to go? Sir, you know, and the next guy just kind of steps up and they get rolling. And I mean, that's what it's talking about. Like, I'm not going to discipline a guy for making the wrong decision. Like, we will talk about it, figure it out, move forward from it. But the discipline with it, I mean, what you looking up, buddy?
I wanted to see if the Korean War went into 57. I knew it was a short war, but it went from June 25th, 1950 to July 27th, 1953. So this is a campaign that I'm a little unfamiliar with, but it was 56. So a lot happened in all those decades.
No, but that's talking Israel in 56. That's not talking...
Yeah. But I was just trying to get the general influence about what was going on
in the entire world. Yeah.
Down to what was, because we just had a great world war. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I mean, it was Japanese, everybody. And then Korean War was just right after that.
That was America.
And so now these guys are fighting again.
That's America getting involved in everybody else's shit because we never wanted to be attacked on our home soil ever again.
Yeah, no,
We
I
said
get that
never
one.
the fuck again.
Yeah.
So then we decide, well, we're going to
It's not
jump
gonna
into this Korea conflict. We're going to jump into this North Korea, South Korea. Fucking, we're going to pick a side and we're going to make sure, what happens with it. We're going to jump into this. We're going to jump into that.
Well,
Because
the
we want
battle
to
of
be
the-
involved there before they get involved here.
Well, not only World War II teach them a lot as far as what they were going to do is Pearl Harbor, but the Battle of the Bulge was them experiencing the enemy is right at our door. They were the Battle of the Bulge was a particular battle where they were down to their last men and their last ships, and follow me citations for valor. Courage under valor was a lot of Navy and Air Force men that held off the Japanese, the Yamamoto, the big warships.
Yeah.
And they were right in distance from striking the mainland. So yeah, they were never going to let it happen again, and they didn't want there to be another power that was going to. America said never again, like you said, or will they attack our home soil again? And the Battle of the Bulge was a prime example of how close they came to experiencing being attacked on their soil again. So the Battle of the Bulge was them experiencing how close it was.
How realistic a threat that actually is.
The Japanese Navy almost winning that. They come down to their last men. And so what you said about they're not going to let Korea do it, and they're not going to, they were becoming another power too close. So we were in the mindset of keeping the world tame. That was something that was going to come up and poke his head up again.
Well, that's always been our mindset, and that's the mindset we live off of and roll off of and do off of. And the problem with that mindset is that we're doing it from a strong position instead of a strategic position. And you can only be the bully for so long until you become everybody's bully.
Yeah.
So you've got to do things that's spooling off into my personal. I've got nothing.
I got something to pull back up on. So in Ethos 5.0, I made reference to we were speaking about Alexander the Great and his experiences and where it started with love, and love being on the battlefield. And if you remember, he was quite a humble leader. And I made all the sentences together about a particular biblical passage. I put them together, but I didn't put them together like I'm about to put them together right now. So John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend." That is exactly the trenches of the battlefield. You're shoulder to shoulder with someone, and greater love has no man than to lay down his life for another man beside him. And this has been one of the passages that have taken and encompassed what people keep in their hearts and in their minds, and what Jesus.
But if you take that passage and you put it into any warrior's culture, right? So you put it into the Spartan culture and the Felix of them standing shield to shield, making the shield walls, the Vikings making the shield walls, and the Spartans making the shield walls, and everybody working together as a unit, and your love for your person to the left and right being more valuable than the love for yourself is what makes this entire unit impenetrable. And, just like the movie 300, you've got waves of these Persians just crashing against the shields,
that's a good example.
And they're what? They're just slaves. It's an army of slaves. It's an army of people doing the bidding of somebody else. They're not highly trained. They're not in this thick of battle together for the man to left and the right.
Brainwashed bodies.
Yeah, brainwashed bodies.
Just being slain. Nothing like the ethos that we carry. I'm glad we have it here. We wouldn't be the country we are without it. So you want to jump into 16, follow me?
Oh, well, we just did follow me. Follow me was the Israel part. Let's do the second half of follow me.
Yeah, that's the second half.
So we let off with Israel's follow me. So Israel's officers were following because of their follow me stuff, and then we were jumping in Alexander. What does Alexander's follow me go?
In the historic clashes of the Granicus River, Issus and Gaugamela, Alexander the Great's order of battle ran like this: Allied horses on the left, infantry flanks in the center, silver shields to their right, then the elite companion cavalry. At the head of this 1,600-man detachment rode Alexander himself on his war horse, Bucephalus, wearing a double-plumed helmet that could be seen by every man in the army. He led the charge in person and prided himself on being first to strike the enemy. Wow. This is the concept of leading by example.
And
yeah, that's Alexander the Great. He'd embolden every one of his men.
well, that's like every great Viking king wanting to be on the front fucking lines, and yeah, like almost the what's that, Troy, where the two soldiers battle instead of the entire armies. Like, we'll put our best against your best to see who the fuck wins this thing, and everybody else can live and go home.
It must be something to have that kind of command over 1,600 men, and you raise your sword, and in unison, all that you've worked, all that you've emboldened in your soldiers comes out in a heroic roar, charging at the enemy with nothing but loud clashing and horses and loud men screaming.
And you look across the field and you see all these Scots pulling up their skirts and slapping their asses.
Yeah. And a spear getting driven directly into him. Eesh.
Boy, Braveheart was a long movie, but it had some good scenes.
Every part of that was a great scene, and every part of it itself had a lot of what the warrior ethos was about. They weren't leaving for each other. Their strength was lended to one another.
Exactly.
So back to our Alexander the Great, 1,600 man detachment. They said that he led the charge in person and prided himself on being the first to strike the enemy. This is the concept of leading by example, but it also embodies the ancient precept, that killing the enemy is not honorable unless the warrior places himself equally in harm's way. Yeah, there's honor in that, and gives the enemy an equal chance to kill him. The samurai code of Bushido forbade the warrior from approaching any enemy by stealth. Honor commanded that he show himself plainly and permit the foe a fighting chance to defend himself. And then came the ninja tactics. What I didn't like that.
Well, that's why the samurai code was the samurai code, was to say that the ninjas were not real warriors. You know, like, wow. If you've got to cheat to beat me, then you have no honor, and now you're playing against the other man's code of ethos, and you know, is he going to continue to take his ninja approach, or is he gonna face you man to man and give you the same possibility of winning? Yeah,
and it there's some inside details of that, but the ninja was supposed to have been born out of the samurais taking too much,
a necessity,
and so.
Well, I mean,
it's supposed to be some of the undoing of the samurais itself was the ninja.
But you think about every large power that goes in, and you look back at world history, and you're like, why do they do these guerrilla war tactics? Why were we shooting at the redcoats from the fucking woods? Because we can't meet them out on the open battlefield, but they're marching around in red in the middle of the fucking snow. So I mean, they're a pretty good target if I'm hiding.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was.
You know,
you want to walk through the woods like that? Go right ahead.
And I mean, that's the same thing with the guerrilla warfare. The same thing with the IEDs. The same thing with Alexander and them, and the Afghanistan destroying the roads whenever he's gone, and Iraq destroying the roads whenever he's gone. You know, like these people have a mindset, and they're like, look, if we make it tough for you to be here, you're not going to want to be here, and we were fine with you not being here to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, what's this all about? The low peasants and the slaves are the last one to hear what's going on, or the farmers are the last one to hear what's going on. I guess they fear the war. They're not the trained warrior.
The only thing the farmer fears is a bad harvest.
That's right. Yeah, and there's much more to be feared. So that way they know love and they know their family.
That's all that's within his control.
All right. Let's get back into this. All right. So during the North African campaign, of 1940 through 1942, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. He led from so far forward that 3 times he either drove or flew himself smack among the British enemy and escaped only by blind luck and wild daring. Rommel's aggressiveness was matched by his sense of fair play and honor. So Field Marshal Erwin Rommel led from so far that he 3 times either drove or flew himself smack among the British enemy.
Silly Brits.
You British mates.
Silly British.
Yeah, they got some fighting clout to them. Let's see what we got here next. I'm on page 49. A company of Africa Corps had surrounded a British artillery battery and was demanding its surrender.
Okay.
The German captain had captured an English officer named Desmond Young. With a gun in his hand, the captain commanded Young to order his men to give themselves up. Young refused. At this moment, Rommel chanced to come upon the scene of his staff car. The captain explained the situation, certain that Rommel, his commanding general, would back him up. Instead, the Desert Fox ordered the captain to put away his weapon and to cease demanding of his British prisoners that he order his own men to surrender. Such an act, Rommel said, runs counter to the honorable conventions of war. He ordered his captain to find some other solution, while he himself took the Englishman, Young, aside and shared with him cool water and tea from his own canteen. Yeah, I mean, you're stout. You know that the giving up is going to be the much more giving away. And I can imagine under that kind of pressure, it would seem, like the sensible thing would be, but that's just not the act of war. There's no sense in it whatsoever. You're whether you're up against the tightest of ropes or the most of pressure, why would you trust any of those guys to put your men back in the lives at gunpoint, in the middle of the war, at the end of the war, maybe, things were
but
calming down.
Once again, at the end of the war, you don't even know it's the end of the war. Like you barely trust the source of where you're getting your information.
I imagine it must have been.
I mean, you've heard the stories of them coming across Japanese people after World War II on little islands throughout the Pacific, thinking that the war's still going on.
I've heard of that.
Like
I've heard some stories.
If you don't get the message, you don't get the memo, you don't know.
Yeah. I guess my thought was, I was thinking mainland Germany. And I guess the only way to tell is the mass amount of people. Is when the German army was given up, the mass amount of people. They were down to their last ranks. There were kids and there were young officers coming from the center of Germany to go to the outskirts. So, I guess things changed from the beginning of the war. It was just brutal. It was, fight for fight, and no one's given up any ground.
Yeah.
It had to have been changed. But regardless, you don't surrender any of that side, whether I'm captain or not. I wouldn't order my men to go to the slaughter and tell them because of my own life, Well,
and then
the bullet's going to save their life. It goes through my head.
At what point are the men going to even believe or trust that order? Like, yeah, that would have been a citation for cowardice if he would have been like, yeah, give up your arms, and they're like, no, we're not. General, Captain what's his name said we weren't, and by the end of the war, he lived, and the rest of his men went around and took said bridge, and he went home, and he gave up his troops. That's a life to live the rest of your life at. Yeah.
Bury me.
All right, buddy. Any last words? We'll wrap it up, jump into another one. We had half an hour.
Yeah, no, that's good. Stick with me in the book. Again, if you have any books that you're reading right now or that you have read that consequently have subject matter to do with ethos and things of warriors, reach out and let us know. Say something in the comments. Would love to share it on our podcast.
Hey, man,
thank you.
The same thing if with a mental health book or a wellness book or anything like that you think would has helped you personally. Yeah, and you don't even have to leave us a comment, man. We've got all of our things for you to email us. Find us on the socials, shoot us some DMs, tell us what's going on, and we will definitely look into it. Maybe even have you on the podcast to help hit whatever points you want home. Iron sharpens iron. That's all we're doing is making each other better here.
Oh,
trying to become a resource for everybody who needs us.
Yes, we are.
Ethos of Silence. We're out.
If you need more information on veterans benefits, please visit our website at VFW Post 4224.org. That's Victor Foxtrot Whiskey, Post 4224.org. All of our contact information is in the description of the video. Please email us. We now have a moment of silent prayer for those still in the battle, for our departed comrades, for those missing in action, and for those held as prisoners of war.